What do we mean when we talk about personality? From a research standpoint, personality refers to the unique and stable ways people think, feel, and behave. Let's start off by thinking about your own personality. Who are you? What do you like? Take a minute to answer the following question. I am blank. Think of 3 characteristics that describe you and write them down. I'll give you a minute because I want you to commit to 3 and only 3. It's hard, right? Since you were limited to 3 traits, you probably wanted to be fairly broad or general to capture as many aspects of yourself as you could in only one term. Did you say anything negative? I am selfish, or I am lazy, or did you keep it positive? Now, think about how you became that way. Were you born with these traits? Do your parents tell you that you've always been this way? To what extent do you think that you were impacted by your family or your home life? Do people ever tell you that you act just like your mom or dad? Well, your answers to these questions might indicate your own informal theory of personality development. Another question is the issue of how to assess personality. If you wanted to measure someone's personality traits, how would you do it with reliability and validity? Well, a common way is to administer a psychometrically sound self-report inventory like one for the Big Five. The Big Five, or 5-factor model of personality, was first developed by researchers McCrae and Costa in the late 90s and is now a model of personality that has received considerable research support. The 5 distinct personality dimensions in this model are 1. Neuroticism, which refers to a person's emotional stability versus their instability. So how calm versus anxious they are, or how secure versus insecure. The second one is extraversion, which refers to how sociable the person is versus being a homebody, so how affectionate versus how reserved they are. The third one is openness to experience, which refers to a person's preference for variety versus routine. How independent is the person versus conforming? The fourth one is agreeableness, which refers to how helpful versus uncooperative a person is. So in other words, how trusting versus suspicious. And finally, conscientiousness, or how organized versus disorganized, disciplined versus impulsive the person is. These traits appear to be stable in adulthood, largely heritable, common to all cultures, and good predictors of other personal attributes. Some interesting research has been conducted on the Big Five. For example, we now know that the heritability of the traits, or the extent to which the individual variations can be attributed to genes, is about 40% for each of the 5 traits. Our environment and culture impact our personality, but there are also many genes that interact and combine to influence our personality. On the biological side of things, we now know a lot about the differences between introverts and extroverts, such as that introverts tend to salivate more than extroverts when lemon juice is placed in their mouth. Why? Well, brain activity scans of extroverts indicate they seek environmental stimulation because their normal brain arousal is relatively low. PET scans measuring central nervous system or CNS arousal show lower frontal lobe activity in extroverts compared to introverts. It may seem contrary to what you might first guess, given the outgoing nature of extroverts, but inwardly they are less aroused by the same environmental stimulation. They get bored easily. They don't find activities like crowded parties or bungee jumping overstimulating or scary. They find them enjoyable or exciting. Quiet people, on the other hand, may be influenced by a more reactive central and autonomic nervous system, making them respond to the party with stress and greater anxiety and inhibition. Introverts demonstrate faster classical conditioning because they are more easily aroused. Using an eye blink conditioning procedure, Eysenck and Levy in 1972 found that introverts exhibited greater conditioning and were able to be conditioned with weaker stimuli than were extroverts. Another classic study measured people's reactions to bad news by administering a task to participants that required students to learn a digit symbol code. After the learning phase, they were either told that they had scored higher or lower than average or given no feedback at all. They were then immediately given a test of anxiety. Introverts showed significantly higher anxiety than extroverts after receiving negative feedback, but did not differ under the other two conditions. So again, the emotional reaction was stronger to the bad news for the introverts due to their over-arousal. There is also some support for the idea that in extroverts, depressants like alcohol would increase extroverted-like behavior, whereas stimulants like coffee or tobacco would increase their introverted-like behavior. Researchers have found that the effect of alcohol is greater on extroverts than introverts, and they've also found that the stimulant dextroamphetamine enhanced the effectiveness of extroverts while inhibiting that of introverts. One explanation of hyperactivity in children is that they are under-aroused, much like extroverts. Therefore, administering the stimulant Ritalin may act to make them more like introverts, thus increasing their attention and responsiveness. So in conclusion, our personality develops and changes throughout our childhoods and adolescence, but our traits stabilize eventually and allow for a good bit of stability the older we get. Our biology influences our personality, and our personality traits are significant in that they impact large areas of our life, such as our careers and life partners. Situations impact our behavior, yes, but traits also matter.